What's up, guys? I'm tired of saying we're back. We're back. Okay. Today we're coming with you barefaced as we usually do. Eyebrows almost gone, coming off. I don't know if you guys know, I was in a car accident again. So this eyebrow is non-existent. I have to draw it on every single day. So once you see that it starts coming off, it's getting late. It's time to go to bed. But anyways, we're gonna do this video. I'm actually using my sister's phone to do this video. Look how fucking white this crust is now. It's time to wash my hair. I'm using my sister's phone to do this video because I actually broke my screen. Yeah. Drunk. Yeah. And you know, I really wanted to do this specific video. I specifically wanted to do this topic. And as we do this topic, yes, we are drinking. And this topic is very important to me. And I'll tell you why it's so important to me. Because there's a high possibility when it comes to this specific thing that I may be wrong. I may be severely wrong. But in this moment in time, I truly believe it. And for some reason, because of that, that means a lot to me. And I'm tired of coming on here and feeling like I'm talking to y'all. And yes, I may be talking about stuff, but it feels like I'm acting. It feels like I'm still working on getting in the groove of things, you know, and every video I will get better. Every video it will get better. But, you know, I'm working on just really expressing and really just being straight up, being straightforward. And the thing that I wanted to come here and talk about is the idea and this experience of being human. And how when we are fully human, like we are fully human, how that can be a radical act, right? And there's so many ways that I can tackle this. There's so many ways I could go about it, but the first way I want to go about it is just like, in this world and in this society, like a good example is when I go to work, I am not really Noah. You know, I'm not 100% Noah. I work really hard to be at least 50, 60% Noah. But some days it's hard. And some days I'm 20% Noah. And that's a crazy concept for even me. I don't know about you, but that's a crazy concept for me to even understand. Only 20% myself? When I'm somewhere where I'm working and I'm there, okay, 8 hours a day, probably more sometimes. It sounds as if I spend a good chunk of my life at this place. And I'm only there and I'm only being 20% of myself. Okay, that sounds fucking insane, you know. And some people might say that it's necessary. Some people might say that it is it's a good break from it's hard to explain, but people might say like it's good, it's necessary, it's a good break or whatever. But for me, and currently as I'm growing up, I'm 26, currently as I'm growing, it's exhausting. But not only is it exhausting, but it's suffocating. You know? For me, I have a huge thing when it comes to being myself. And it goes to the point where I am going to be fully honest with you guys. It goes to the point where if I have to drink and deal with the consequences later to just be myself, I will. And then people will sit down and say, well, you're drinking. That's not really who you are. I beg to differ. Because then one moment they'll say, drunk mind speaks sober thoughts. But then a minute they'll say, well, you're drinking, that's not really who you are. You're not really being who you are. So it's like, what the fuck is really going on? You know? But this is my opinion on it. I completely, yes, there are times where I think that sober mind speaks drunk thoughts. There are times. But there are also times when we drink, we perceive things very differently than what it is, which causes us to respond differently than what we would. You understand what I'm saying? So I wouldn't say that drunk mind speaks sober thoughts, because the drunk mind is perceiving things and perceiving the world very differently than the sober mind will. So they're ultimately, they're two separate entities. I don't feel like they really can be aligned in certain ways, you know. That's why there's a huge thing when it comes to alcohol is impaired judgment. Impaired judgment. That's a huge thing that they say. You can't drink because it's impaired judgment. You can't do this because it's impaired judgment. You can't do this because it's impaired judgment. So, and I also believe that for like things that happen, when things happen on alcohol, you have impaired judgment. So things may happen, doesn't mean that you've been waiting to say this or this is how you feel. Maybe it is. Maybe it is. I'm not canceling it out. But I'm also just taking to effect where maybe it's just like your impaired judgment. So you may be responding to something a bit more excessively than you normally would because you're perceiving it differently due to the alcohol. But aside from that, I want to go back to the idea of this being human. The society that we live in when it comes to work, when it comes to just being outside and stuff like that, as much as we try to shape it and as much as we try to make it seem, it does not care too much for people's actual human process, especially when it's ugly, especially when it's difficult, especially when it's complicated. And most of the time, there are a lot of humans out here that are coming from experiences that cause their human self to be difficult or complicated to understand or to deal with. And that's an honest truth of what their human self is, you know? But the reason why I say that this act of being human, this act of being yourself is such a radical act is because it completely goes against what the norm is. It goes against what we are told to do. But not only that, but it also brings you closer to understanding who you are and figuring out who you are. And then also being able, when you finally figure out who you are, it allows you to be a mentor, allows you to be a teacher to others who may be going through the same situations. And that's why it's such a radical act. And I don't want to make this extremely exclusive, but I do want to speak on the fact of being Black, being Caribbean, why it is so important for us to act human, for us to make mistakes, why these things are radical acts, why these things create radical change, is because the world expects us to be perfect. The world that we come from, at least. Being Caribbean, being from Trinidad, the world expects you to be perfect. You don't even understand. Like, we talk about being Black and having to be perfect, but having to be Black and Caribbean, when I tell you Caribbean people having to be perfect, it's an understatement. It's an understatement. You know, it's like, it's so, it's so much. It's too much. Because when you're Caribbean, there's so many things that they haven't accepted as yet. There are certain parts about in America where even when you're black, there are certain parts of being American and individualism where you still have a certain amount of freedom. When it comes to being Caribbean, you can't be gay. You can't be bi. They don't even know what bisexual is. Being a man and being bisexual, that is not even conceivable. Like, that is not even conceivable. You know what I'm saying? And not only that, but it's just so many things. You have to be clean. You have to be tidy. You have to know how to cook. You have to know how to be woman. You just so many things, Lord Father. If I tell you, when it comes to being Caribbean, where there's this perfection thing that is so necessary. And when it comes to me, and I'm not gonna lie, the whole reason the America, me having connections to America, has allowed me to actually go against that. It has actually played a large part in the reason on why I am the way that I am. The reasons that I fight against so many things, and the reason why I believe that my existence as a Black Caribbean woman, and what the purpose it serves, is so important. You know, it's not to be the standard. It's not to be the standard Caribbean woman that you'll see it. Like, people, if you're Caribbean, you know what I'm saying, what the standard Caribbean is. Woman is like, cook, clean, do this, do that, educated, this, that. You know what I'm saying? Like, I can't even really say words, but you know when you know. And I fight every day to fight against that. Not saying I can't cook. Not saying I can't clean. Not saying I'm not clean. Not saying I'm not tidy. Not saying this and this and that. But I also don't force myself to have to be that. If there are times where my place is not tidy, that's me, and I'm open and I'm honest about it. I'm outspoken about it. If there's times where I just don't feel like taking a shower, bro, I'm tired, oh gosh, then I'm open and honest about it. If I'm having experiences with women, I'm open and honest about it. And that is why I say that being human, not only being human, but not saying that those are not mistakes, but I'm saying, quote unquote, in the world that we come from, it's seen as making a mistake. Making mistakes is a radical act. Being imperfect is a radical act. It challenges things. It challenges. You don't understand how much I'm not saying that you have to succumb, if I'm using the right word, succumb to what I'm saying, but this idea of having to be perfect, but choosing to be somewhat average or mediocre or whatever word you want to use is a radical act. Like, I just had to put a little silence on that. It's a radical act. Just me as a Black woman, as a Black Caribbean woman, I myself, I am a radical act. And I have pride in that. I have pride in being radical. But, you know, there are some times where I think, like, it's not the easiest mental process to deal with. Like, there has to deal when you choose this life, there involves a lot of self-care. And honestly, to be honest with you guys, I am not doing that self-care. You know, you're going to deal a lot with not really thinking what people think about you, but more constantly thinking in your head, how can I defend myself? I think a lot about that when I make choices, knowing that the choices that I make are for a reason. But I know people are gonna judge me. When you are who you are, when you're somebody that chooses to step beyond the bounds, or just choose to like just live outside of the norm, you're gonna deal with judgment, and you're also gonna feel like you're constantly defending yourself from judgment. So with that, there's a lot of self-care involved, and I'm working on it. I'm figuring out like what works for me, and I don't want to constantly keep defending myself and having arguments in my head because I don't fit the norm. Yes, I know it would be safer to just, let's say, erase all of this and just decide, clean up, Noah. Laser off all these tattoos. You're gonna stop drinking. You're gonna go to church. I'm not saying that people go to church, you know what I'm trying to say. Become a nun. Focus on this and this and that. And it's just like, I can really choose that, and that would be the easier route, honestly, in a weird way. I think both sides are hard and both sides are easy. Like, they just have their own things to deal with. Like, it's just who it's easy for and who it's hard for. That lifestyle that I just spoke of is easy for a lot of people because that's what they grew up knowing and that's what they grew up doing. For me, it would probably be hard because I'm just not used to it, so it's not a habit for me. It was something that I would really have to, like, you know? So, I don't know. Every time I just think, like, when I make mistakes and I show people that I am imperfect, it just feels like, yes. I get it. Like, Black people have this thing where we want to be the best and we want to show that we are capable of things and we are different and we are not what they say we are. But there's also power and I'm not gonna say in what they say we are, but there is power in there's power in being mediocre. There's power in being simple. There was power in not being extraordinary. There is power in that. And I think when you think about what our ancestors fought for, they did fight for us to really be great and be these things, but I think the main thing that they fought for was us just to have the choice to be whatever we wanted to be, you know? And I'm forever grateful. I'm forever grateful to the people that came before me and the people's shoulders that I stand on top of. That had to fight for me to be able to just be mediocre. So I will definitely see you guys soon. I hope you enjoyed this video.